Earlier, I spoke to Philip Hammond and I asked him what would happen if Scotland voted for independence.
Well, that's a hypothetical question, which I'm not going to get into.
It's quite a serious possibility, though, isn't it? So, I mean, we have to consider it.
No, it's not quite a serious possibility.
You don't think it's serious?
We're very confident that the people of Scotland will vote to remain in the United Kingdom because they see time after time that the best interests both of the people of England, Wales and Northern Ireland and the people of Scotland are served by working together
you may or may not be
across
right
the
on
United
that.
Kingdom, as we've shown today,
but
with
there is a
decisions
referendum
being made on the basis of what's in the best interest of the United Kingdom.
Yes, but there is a referendum. It is perfectly plausible that the people of Scotland will vote for independence. You cannot just dismiss that as not a serious possibility. What would happen in that eventuality?
Well, if there was a yes vote in a referendum, that would signal the start of what would be a long and complex process of negotiation between the two governments, which would involve many things. Shipbuilding would be one of them, but things like the future of our nuclear submarine base would be another. There would be many, many things that had to be resolved in the defence area and way beyond it.
But you see no in-principle problem with what is left of the United Kingdom having to effectively get its warships built in a foreign country?
Well, we never have built warships in a foreign country before, apart from during the two world wars, and I don't anticipate that we would want to do that in the future.
So you would have to reverse your decision and reopen Portsmouth?
No, that's not a logical sequence there.
Well, what is the logical sequence?
We will have the UK's complex warship building capability will now be concentrated on the Clyde because that is where the industrial logic points us. That is the situation that I have announced today. If circumstances were to change in the future, and this applies to a whole range of things, not just issues around Scotland, if circumstances were to change in the future, we would have to deal with those changed circumstances when they arose.
I mean,
that is what we do in defence.
You'll understand why people will be very worried about this, because the history of defence procurement is such a disaster, not least with these two aircraft carriers themselves. I mean, what you seem to be saying is a decision that was taken by Labour that you then disagreed with, that you've changed, that now requires the closure of shipbuilding in Portsmouth, could be changed again.
I didn't say any of that.
Next year, if the Scottish people vote for independence.
No, I didn't say any of that, and I'm not saying that.
Well, you're saying you don't envisage a scenario in which
you've just made it up.
The United
I didn't say
Kingdom.
Any of that.
Well, you said you do not envisage a situation in which what's left of the United Kingdom has to get its ships built in a foreign country. The logic of that is that they would have to be built in what is left of the United Kingdom. That means you'll have to change your plans, as announced today.
Well, the plan that we've announced today is to build 3 OPVs, offshore patrol vessels, on the Clyde. And by doing that, we will keep alive on the Clyde the skill set that would allow us to build the Type 26 global combat ship
Scotland.
in an efficient and effective manner on the Clyde.
In Scotland? Which may be a foreign land in a couple of years.
That's the reason that we've made this investment decision today, to keep that option open.
What do you say to the people of Portsmouth, who are looking back on hundreds of years of history and tradition and no economic future for hundreds of families?
The city of Portsmouth will remain Britain's major surface naval base, with hundreds of tons, tens of thousands of tons of shipping based there, and we are investing in the dockyard, in infrastructure spending to enable that sustainment to continue into the future. So the great majority of the jobs in Portsmouth in and connected with the dockyard will endure.
Philip Hammond. Well, joining me now from Westminster is Caroline Dinenage, the Conservative MP for Gosport. And you earlier today said you believe jobs have been sacrificed in your constituency and near it for Scotland.
Well, clearly, because there were only a certain number of jobs to go around, and all those jobs have gone to Scotland on the basis that there are going to be no shipbuilding jobs left in Portsmouth. And of course, that's devastating news for Portsmouth, a city which has got 800 years of proud history of serving the Royal Navy.
So you don't believe Philip Hammond when he says it had nothing to do with it?
Well, I mean, I think it was a commercial decision. I think it was a commercial decision that was largely taken by BAE Systems. We always knew, and people in Portsmouth always knew, that shipbuilding was going to decline because the aircraft carriers were such a massive project, a once in a sort of 50-year type project, and there have always been fluctuations in shipbuilding in Portsmouth. My grandfather worked in the dockyard for 45 years, and there were big periods of 10 to 20 years where no ships were built. But to have signalled an end to shipbuilding altogether in Portsmouth for us is disastrous and devastatingly upsetting news.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite clear what you're saying, because earlier today you clearly seem to be suggesting that the politics of the referendum had been a factor here. Do you still believe that or not?
No, I'm not sure about the referendum. I'm not 100% sure about that. It may have had an impact. I think if it was purely a decision based upon the referendum, then it would have been a much more effective carrot to have dangled the decision after the referendum as a way of encouraging the no vote. But I do think that jobs in England in Portsmouth have been sacrificed in favour of jobs in Scotland. That's plain for anybody to see, and it's devastating news for Portsmouth.
And potentially very bad for Conservative and Liberal Democrat MPs representing Portsmouth.
Well,
I mean, you're going to struggle, aren't you, to convince people that you won their interests?
Well, I mean, but all local MPs have been fighting really hard on this for the many years, and will continue to fight for a fair financial compensation package from the government to make up the shortfall. But actually, the company BAE Systems shouldn't be left unblamed in this. They are a commercial company. As far as we're concerned, they should have been out fighting around the world for competitive contracts to do other international shipbuilding jobs, which would have preserved the jobs in Portsmouth. And we haven't really got any evidence to prove that they've been doing that either. So there's a lot of people to blame here. You
don't sound very reassured by Philip Hammond's assurances about finding people jobs either.
Well, there are going to be a lot of jobs in the. Let's face it, there are 11,000 people still working at the dockyard. There is going to be a lot of jobs in the refit and maintenance, particularly when the aircraft carriers come online in a year or two's time. So there's plenty of jobs there, and the pressure is now going to be on BAE Systems to make sure that where jobs have been lost in shipbuilding, those workers are moved into the refit and maintenance work. So that's really important as well.
Caroline Dinage, thank you very much.